illegal, unwarranted and unconstitutional on the very first day, that is 3rd of November, through a 7-member bench judicial order. And by that order, we had also suspended the operation of both these laws. We had restrained the sitting judges of the High Courts and the Chief Justices from taking new oath of office under PCO, and also restrained the President, the Chief of Army Staff, and other commanders from acting contrary to law or to appoint any other new judge or Chief Justice to the High Court or the Supreme Court. So our position is very clear from day one. We continue to remain the constitutional judges and in office. We have never accepted or recognized the new regime, and that is why we are at our places.
Okay, Mr. Bhagwandas, obviously this situation which is currently prevailing is something which is affecting both the illegal community, the fraternity at large. How will you continue your struggle now?
We see it is for the civil society. It is for the legal fraternity, that is the advocates at large, who have to, and the media people, to launch a struggle. It is not for the judges to come on the streets, raise voice, or to raise any slogan. Judges have to act strictly within the parameters of the Constitution. So we can't afford, and we don't believe in coming on the roads or the streets. It is for the civil society, for media, for advocates community.
Very much so, Mr. Bhagwandas. We saw that the legal fraternity did come out on the roads when the former Chief Justice, Mr. Iftikhar Mohammed Chaudhry, was deposed. Now, let's talk a little bit about the kind of restrictions that have been placed on the judges. We have seen in the federal capital that the judges' colony has almost been sealed, and certain judges have not been allowed to move around. Have there been any restrictions on your movements yourself, sir?
You see, they have been persuading me to proceed to my home place, that is Karachi, with the assurance that there may be no restriction. But I can hardly trust their word. Therefore, I have asked them to make me free over here in Islamabad and to move out of Islamabad according to my own choice. I am testing them. So, for the testing purposes, I have been visiting my consultant dental surgeon in Federal Government Hospital at Islamabad. To that extent, they have been good enough to concede. And we are escorted by a magistrate who happens to be the Assistant Commissioner and SDM of Islamabad.
And one last question for you, Mr. Bhagwandas. So we saw that the President had cited his reasons for imposing emergency. One was what was going on in the tribal belt, and another was he had made quite strong allegations against the judiciary, specifically the Apex Court, of delaying the hearings and delaying the outcomes of the case. What is your response to that?
That is totally baseless and false allegation. There was absolutely no delay on the part of judiciary. It was the government side, government advocates, who were lingering on the proceedings on one pretext or the other, and perhaps sensing that the decision may not be according to their wishes. They have resorted to this illegal and unconstitutional mechanism, which every citizen of Pakistan and the people in foreign countries have deprecated.
Very much so. Mr. Bhagwandas, finally now, obviously the current emergency is still being imposed, and the Election Commission has announced the date for the coming general elections. Now, if emergency was to prevail in the country and the elections were to go ahead, can this be challenged in the courts at any later stage?
Of course, challenge can be thrown to the legality and validity of all illegal and unconstitutional steps. But speaking for myself, I am sure that this state of emergency and PCO cannot prevail long. people will have independent judiciary, independent and free media, and protection of their human rights. This present situation is going to collapse. It cannot last long.
Mr. Bhagwandas, under the current emergency, do you think that the political mobilization of the parties is required more so now, especially with the general elections date being now announced?
Of course, political activity is the demand of the day, but there is no congenial atmosphere even for political parties to hold processions or to hold functions or to hold meetings or to invite people to attend their large gatherings. So it is the demand of the day, but the conditions do not permit them to express their opinion freely. There are restrictions and curbs in the shape of imposition of 144 CRPC on assemblage of more than 5 persons.
And one very last question to you, Mr. Bhagwandas. Obviously, the decisions about the imposition of emergency and the PCA are before the Supreme Court, and we understand that a decision is imminent. What would you say about the integrity of the judiciary if both petitions were struck down?
I do not accept them as judges under the Constitution. Their appointments are illegal. Their oath of office is unwarranted and against Constitution. And any judgment rendered by them will have no constitutional protection or validity.
Mr. Bhagwandas, thank you very much for talking to us here at Dawn News. That was a former judge of the Supreme Court, Mr. Rana Bhagwandas, giving us his interpretation of the current state of emergency and the PCO and the overall situation in the country and what he thinks about the current judiciary which has taken oath under the new PCO. It's time now for us to take a quick recap of the top stories for the hour, but we'll do that